Welcome to 5 Good Minutes.
You're listening to today's inspirational message on the book of 1 Thessalonians
with Dan Irvin.
Today, as we keep looking at 1 Thessalonians chapter 1, I want to look at verses 9 and 10 in this chapter. It says this, it says, "For they themselves report what kind of reception you gave us. They tell how you turned to God from idols, to serve the living and true God, and to wait for his Son from heaven, whom he raised from the dead, Jesus, who rescues us from the coming wrath." Paul says here the Thessalonians turned to God from idols. Not just that they added Jesus to their lives. We talked about that previously this week. Jesus wants to be the entire dresser, the entire, not just a drawer, not just one component, but he wants to be your life. So Paul says they turned to God from idols, leaving behind the thing that once ruled over them. I think when we hear the word idol, we can think of, and especially when we read it in the biblical sense, we can think, okay, are we talking about primitive statues, temples, gold, bronze? What are we talking about here? Tim Keller wrote about idols in this way. He said, an idol is whatever you look at and say in your heart, if I have that, then I'll feel my life has meaning. Then I know I'll have value. Then I'll feel significant and secure. And idols, by their very nature, they enslave. They demand more and more of us while giving less and less in return. Just imagine for a second an old-fashioned wooden wagon wheel, like horse and carriage style. At the center of the wheel is the hub. All the spokes radiate out from the hub. That hub, the center, is what holds everything together. What is at the very center of our lives, whether it's success, approval, control, even things that are good like family and relationships, it's a functional God in a way. The thing that we think is holding it all together, the thing that we say, if I just have this thing, if I get there, then I'll be okay. But what happens when that hub, when it cracks, when it doesn't happen the way you think it should? Well, the whole wheel collapses in on itself. Maybe some of you know what this feels like. You built your whole life around maybe career success, and a promotion doesn't come around when you think it should. Or you build it up your whole life around a relationship, and then that person, parent figure, love interest, friend, whatever it is, lets you down in a significant way. Or maybe you've just built your whole life around controlling what's happening to you, controlling the outcomes, and then life threw something your way that you could not fix. The idols we trust in will always leave us disappointed, because in the end, they were never intended to bear the weight of our hope. And that's why Paul says here in these few verses that the Thessalonians turned from idols to the living and true God. Not just turning from idols, but they turned to something, the living and true God. You can't just remove an idol from your life and replace it with any old thing. You have to replace it with the thing that our lives were intended to be centered on, something greater, something more secure, more beautiful. And this is the difference between every other thing we could trust our lives to and Jesus. Every other master, every other ruler says, do for me and I will accept you. Perform for me. Live up to my standard, and then you can be in my presence. Jesus says, I have already done the performing. I have already done the rescuing. You don't need to do anything to be in my presence. That's the good news of the gospel, not just about believing in God, but about recentering our entire lives around Jesus. Transferring our trust from something that can never save us to the one who already has. So that's why Paul says in verse 10, they turned to God and they waited for his Son from heaven. They waited for his Son from heaven. They were putting their hope and their trust in Jesus. So the question today is, what is at the center of your life? If it isn't Jesus, what's the thing that if it were taken away would make you feel like your life isn't even worth living? Whatever that is, that's your true God. Maybe it's Jesus. I hope it is. But my guess is it might be something else today. Paul is saying only when Christ is at the center of your life, where your life truly makes sense, where your life truly hold together. Everything else around you, every other idol that you put in its place will eventually fail. But in Jesus, we can find a life and a hope that doesn't rust, that doesn't spoil, and that doesn't fade away, that will last forever.
Thanks for joining us here today. There's a lot of great content to explore on Orchard Hill Plus and on the Orchard Hill main feed from the weekend. Have a great day.